Donald Trump has just made a bold move, setting a deadline for a ceasefire in Ukraine, one that could bring the war to an end in a matter of weeks. With high-stakes negotiations kicking off in Saudi Arabia, US and Russian officials are preparing for intense discussions that could reshape the conflict's future. But while Trump's team is pushing for a breakthrough, not everyone is on board. The Kremlin is already distancing itself from the proposed timeline, and fresh tensions on the battlefield threaten to complicate the talks before they even begin. Will this be the deal that finally ends the war, or is another roadblock on the horizon? Stay tuned as we break down the latest developments. But first, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more. Just a quick one to say we have new Liber t-shirts available on our website. You can check the link in the description or go to BritishStand.com. Donald Trump has officially set a deadline for a ceasefire in Ukraine, aiming to bring the war to an end by April 20th, Easter Sunday, for both Western and Eastern Christian traditions. While the move has been framed as a symbolic olive branch to Russia, the road to peace is expected to be far from smooth, with US and Russian officials bracing for weeks of complex and challenging negotiations. Top White House officials are set to engage in separate meetings with Russian and Ukrainian representatives in Saudi Arabia this week, in what could be a breakthrough moment for a potential truce. On Monday, Ukrainian officials will meet with US mediators, marking what is believed to be the first parallel negotiations between all three parties since the early weeks of Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022. Trump's Russian envoy, Steve Witkoff, has expressed optimism about the upcoming discussions, hinting that a partial ceasefire could be within reach. Speaking to Fox News on Sunday, Witkoff suggested that these negotiations could serve as a stepping stone toward a more comprehensive peace deal. "I feel that Russian President Vladimir Putin wants peace," Witkoff stated. "I think that you're going to see in Saudi Arabia on Monday some real progress, particularly as it affects a Black Sea ceasefire on ships between both countries. And from that, you'll naturally gravitate into a full-on shooting ceasefire." Despite Witkoff's confidence, the Kremlin has been far more cautious. Vladimir Putin's spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, made it clear that Russia is not committing to any specific timeline for a ceasefire, warning that negotiations are still in their early stages. "We are only at the beginning of this path," Peskov said, distancing Moscow from Trump's proposed Easter deadline. Peskov also took the opportunity to criticize Ukraine, accusing President Volodymyr Zelensky's government of continuing attacks on Russian infrastructure despite ongoing peace discussions. While the Russian side has been sticking to its word for several days now, the word that the president gave and to the president's command, which immediately came into force and was immediately implemented. The same cannot be said of the Kyiv regime, Peskov claimed. His comments come after another night of heavy strikes by Ukrainian forces on Russian energy facilities, further escalating tensions between the two nations. Last week, Trump and Putin reportedly discussed a temporary suspension of attacks on key infrastructure. Following the call, Putin agreed to halt Russian strikes, but Kyiv has accused Moscow of failing to follow through on its promise. Just days later, Russia and Ukraine blamed each other for an explosion that destroyed a Russian gas station in a contested border town where Ukrainian troops have been retreating. In response, the Kremlin has warned that it reserves the right to take symmetrical action against Ukrainian energy targets. When asked if Ukraine's alleged violations of the agreement could prompt another phone call between Trump and Putin, Peskov responded, "Absolutely." The presidents confirmed their intention to continue contacts as necessary. He also hinted at the possibility that more conversations have taken place between Trump and Putin than the two that have been officially disclosed. "Listen, we inform you about the conversations that we are aware of, but we can't rule out everything else," he said cryptically. Peskov further suggested that the most recent phone call was a step toward an in-person meeting between Trump and Putin, something that could dramatically shift the trajectory of the ongoing conflict. He also stated that Monday's negotiations in Saudi Arabia would serve as another step in that direction. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has insisted that his government is approaching negotiations in good faith and is determined to find a peaceful resolution. The conversation is quite useful. The work of the delegations is continuing, Zelensky said on Sunday. But no matter what we say to our partners today, we need to get Putin to give a real order to stop the strikes. Zelensky's comments reflected deep distrust of Moscow's intentions, with Ukrainian officials fearing that any ceasefire deal could be used by Russia to regroup and strengthen its military position. What comes next? As negotiations continue in Saudi Arabia, the pressure is mounting on all sides to find a workable solution. Trump's proposed Easter deadline may be ambitious, but it has set the stage for what could be the most significant diplomatic push since the war began. With the Kremlin remaining cautious, Ukraine staying defiant, and the US pushing for a swift resolution, the next few weeks could determine whether the war finally moves toward peace, or whether another round of escalation is just around the corner. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments. In other news, Rachel Reeves has been urged to abandon the bonkers state pension triple lock in what would mark a major blow to the savings of millions of hard-working Britons. Jim O'Neill, a former Treasury Minister who quit the Tories to later personally advise the Chancellor, has warned that Reeves has hemmed herself in through Labour's manifesto commitments ahead of her much-anticipated spring statement on Wednesday. Lord O'Neill said that abolishing NHS England and taking an axe to foreign aid were tackling some sacred cows, and has pointed the party in the direction of the triple lock for its potential next target. They already busted a manifesto commitment by cutting international aid, so why would that not open the door to breaking other manifesto pledges, he asked. The now crossbench peer added, to really give them the scope for a lot of the things they want to do on current spending, and not get into the Tory game of constant cutting at the margins, they're going to have to deal with serious income taxes or break the triple lock. Keeping the triple lock is just bonkers. At least they could means test it. O'Neill continued, they have hemmed themselves in because of the manifesto commitments, and compounded that by announcing such large increases in areas such as health and school buildings the first time around, moving to means test the triple lock, which ensures pensions increase annually by the highest rate out of 2.5%, average earnings or inflation, would likely spark a similar uproar from Britain's pensioners to the one which erupted after Labour's winter fuel payment assault last year. The move prompted outcry from charities, poverty campaigners and politicians alike, though Reeves has defended it at the time. We committed to the triple lock in our manifesto, not just for 1 year but for the duration of this parliament, she said. And a triple lock means that this winter the new state pension is worth £900 more than it was a year ago. With the Treasury's fiscal headroom slashed, growth projections falling, and major public sector spending cuts looming, the Chancellor has been offered an alternative route too: getting creative. Ben Caswell, a senior economist at the National Institute of Economic and Social Research, said Reeves could look to emulate Germany by shifting defense spending off the books and excluding it from fiscal rules. If you start investing in new factories to build munitions and tanks, that wouldn't actually affect our fiscal space because it's investment capital expenditure, he said. But one source close to the Chancellor rejected the idea. They said, first, we changed the fiscal rules last year to unlock £100 billion of capital spending. Second, we've already announced how we'll meet the 2.5% defence target by 2027. And third, if we did what Germany did, borrowing costs would have gone up by £4 billion a year. That's the size of the prison's budget. What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you've not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you, take care, goodbye.